I think it's an important topic right now, especially with the midterms 4 days away. A lot of money has gone into Facebook campaign ads, and so far Dems have outspent Republicans 3-1 on Facebook ads. So we'll see if the predicted blue wave materializes on Tuesday, hopefully not. On a related note, Facebook has apparently set up a war room at their headquarters in California in an effort to combat misinformation that could impact the election results. So like it or not, Facebook does play a critical role in our politics now, and because of that, I think it's vital for us all to understand what their internal political culture is like, and Tucker does too. He recently interviewed an ex-employee of Facebook, Brian Amerige, who decided to call it quits because of the company's, quote, intolerant culture. So let's watch this interview, and then I'll give you some more information about Brian and this story.
Brian, thanks a lot for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It was brave and nice of you, I thought, to explain why you were leaving. And you say a lot of nice things about Facebook, by the way, we should say, in the memo that you wrote. You call it a monoculture. That's not a surprise to our viewers. What I was struck by is you said, in one of your first lines, you said, we've taken a stance on how to balance offensive and hateful speech with free expression. Now, when Facebook launched, my impression as a user and to someone watching was that free expression was the goal. But that's changed, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's actually been pretty dramatic to watch the shift over the years. And, you know, that's essentially why I'm leaving. You know, I'm leaving because of this content policy direction, which, you know, trying to draw lines around what's acceptable and what's offensive or too offensive, you know, I think it's dangerous and it's impractical. You know, it's impossible to define what something like hate speech is, and it's even harder to implement it and enforce it, sort of at Facebook scale. And to your point, like, you know, this is core to what the mission of the company is. And I think it's this huge strategic misstep for a company whose product's primary value is to promote free expression, is trying to draw these lines.
Why are they doing that? I mean, it's fraught with peril. It's obvious. You just said it. And I actually think Congress could bite back because they're doing it, but they're doing it anyway. So why?
Well, you know, it's hard to imbue intent to anybody on these things. You know, I wouldn't pretend to be able to put myself in their shoes. You know, what I can say, though, is that, you know, executives at the company do actually take the sort of assertions and claims that I've made very seriously. And you know, they didn't fire me. They engaged me, and I actually spent like the better part of the last month working with them to figure out how to improve this stuff. Now, there's a really big distinction, though, between how those executives are handling this and what a vocal minority inside the company is doing. And there is a vocal minority inside Facebook that is belligerent beyond belief in a quest, I think, to implement social justice policies, you know, across our mission, basically.
Give me one example of that, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, I think like just looking at the way the hate speech policy is implemented, like on the platform, you know, you can't even have conversations about that policy inside the company without having your character attacked. And I've experienced this personally, without being called a sexist or a racist or a transphobe or an Islamophobe. Like you can't have conversations about those kind of, you know, anything that's a tenet of the social justice ideology, effectively, without being attacked personally. And you know, the real concerning thing that's happening here is that, you know, even though this is a minority of employees in the company, unfortunately, I'm not sure that Facebook leadership knows how to push back against them.
Right.
And like I said, they're unbelievably belligerent, demanding, and hostile, not just toward other employees, but toward the Facebook leadership directly. And you know, my real concern is whether they can push back.
Because everybody's terrified in this country. That's actually the lesson of this and so many things. Thank you very much for this and for your bravery, and I hope that you go on to something much better and more lucrative. Thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you, Tucker.
All right, so good on Brian for coming on Tucker's show and providing some insight into the political climate within Facebook, and also for standing by his principles and defending freedom of expression. I think Brian made some very insightful and brave remarks. You know, he's probably going to have some trouble getting an engineering job in Silicon Valley after all this, but focusing now on his message, he mentioned at the beginning that it was impossible to define hate speech and even harder to enforce it on the kind of scale that Facebook has to deal with. And I completely agree with him on this, but obviously Facebook Facebook does not agree with this position, right? They have an official policy on hate speech, just like all the social media companies do. This is it right here, and I'm going to read it because I do think it's important for us to know how they interpret and enforce speech, at least on paper. So again, Brian says hate speech is impossible to define, whereas Facebook says, we define hate speech as a direct attack on people based on what we call protected characteristics: race, ethnicity, national origin, religious affiliation, sexual orientation, caste, sex, gender, gender identity, and serious disease or disability. We also provide some protections for immigration status. We define attack as violent or dehumanizing speech, statements of inferiority, or calls for exclusion or segregation. We separate attacks into 3 tiers of severity as described below. Sometimes people share content containing someone else's hate speech for the purpose of raising awareness or educating others. Similarly, in some cases, words or terms that might otherwise violate our standards are used self-referentially or in an empowering way. When this is the case, we allow the content, but we expect people to clearly indicate their intent, which helps us better understand why they shared it. Where the intention is unclear, we may remove the content. We allow humor and social commentary related to these topics. In addition, we believe that people are more responsible when they share this kind of commentary using their authentic identity. So obviously, Brian and Facebook have a significant difference of opinion when it comes to regulating freedom of expression, and this whole story actually broke back in August when Brian put out an internal memo which he titled, "We have a problem with diversity." This is it right here, and I will read through it in a moment, but as you can see, it's not nearly as extensive as James Damore's infamous Google memo. I think his was about 10 pages, but in any case, let's go through Brian's memo. It's really good. He begins with the problem. We are a political monoculture that's intolerant of different views. We claim to welcome all perspectives, but are quick to attack, often in mobs, anyone who presents a view that appears to be in opposition to left-leaning ideology. We throw labels that end in OBE and IST at each other, attacking each other's character rather than their ideas. We do this so consistently that employees are afraid to say anything when they disagree with what's around them politically. HR has told me that this is not a rare concern, and I've personally gotten over 100 messages to that effect. Your colleagues are afraid because they know that they, not their ideas, will be attacked. They know that all the talk of openness to different perspectives does not apply to causes of social justice, immigration, diversity, and equality. On these issues, you can either keep quiet or sacrifice your reputation and career. These are not fears without cause, because we tear down posters welcoming Trump supporters. We regularly propose removing Thiel from our board because he supported Trump. We're quick to suggest firing people who turn out to be misunderstood, and even quicker to conclude our colleagues are bigots. We have made All Lives Matter a fireable offense. We put Palmer Luckey through a witch hunt because he paid for anti-Hillary ads. We write each other ad hoc feedback in the PSC tool for having offensive ideas. We ask HR to investigate those who dare to criticize Islam's human rights record for creating a non-inclusive environment. And they called me a transphobe when I called out our corporate art for being politically radical. This is not okay, not just for our internal culture, but for our own viability as a company. While the problem isn't unique to us, we are entrusted by a great part of the world to be impartial and transparent carriers of people's stories, ideas, and commentary. Congress doesn't think we can do this. The president doesn't think we can do this. And like them or not, we deserve that criticism. We are blind to and dismissive of what people beyond our walls, let alone even within our walls, think about complex issues that matter. I've been here for nearly 6.5 years, and this has gotten exponentially worse in the last 2. And then Brian finishes up with this new group idea for Facebook called Facebookers for Political Diversity. I don't know how to fix this problem on my own. What I do know is that these issues can't be fixed if we continue to be isolated and silent. So that's what this group is for. A, to be a space where you can talk about these issues without fear of the mob, and in the process, B, to talk about how we can fix this. If you are interested in helping make Facebook a company that's more tolerant and active-minded about different political and ideological perspectives, join Facebookers for Political Diversity. There's only going to be one core rule in the group, and it's that if you attack a person's character rather than their ideas, you will be banned. Let's see where this goes. Alright, so excellent memo there by Brian, calling out the ideological pressure from within. And you know, I am happy that he's doing what he thinks is best for him, but selfishly, I kind of wish he had stayed on because I think it's so important that our tech companies have employees like him. I hope that there are like-minded folks at Facebook who will continue to advocate for ideological diversity, not just the superficial color and gender diversity. And to be fair, there were over 100 employees who promptly joined Brian's Facebook group, so at least that's something we can be encouraged by. But still, still, the only way I really see this problem being attenuated over time is if these tech companies hire more conservative employees top to bottom across all positions. And that's going to be tough because the companies first have to straighten out their own intolerant employees, the ones Brian referred to as belligerent beyond belief. And then they will have to really convince the public that they've changed and that they will welcome employees who don't think socialism is a good idea, who don't think Hillary would have made a good president, or that radical feminism is good for the country. So a lot of things would need to change, but I don't see any compelling evidence that we're actually moving in that direction, unfortunately. But let us know what you guys think about this. Maybe I'm just being too much of a pessimist. Anyway, that's it for this one. I do hope we're making some positive impact with our channel, so if you'd like to support our work on YouTube, please check out our Patreon page and consider becoming a patron. It is a new month, so we'll have another Q&A in about 2 weeks, and that is an exclusive perk for patrons. I think we're also going to try out some new content this month in addition to our usual videos, so hopefully you guys end up liking that. We do want to earn your support always. Alright, I'll see y'all in the next video.